received our battery. See, darn. Kodo.
This is the battery that came out of there. This is the 600 milliamp, and obviously it's wide. That means I need to do some fabrication there to make that fit. We have two areas to modify here. One is the battery itself, and the other is the frame. Now the battery, as you see, the old one has a much longer connector wire. When it's sitting in place, the wire fits around, and the old one, the new battery, the wire is way too short, won't even reach the hole, the exit hole. So it has to come out here like this, has to come out through here and wrap around so that you can actually plugs back in. So that means we're going to have to extend this wire and replace, but we don't have a replacement end. We're going to have to use the same end and just extend the wire. That means cutting it and splicing it and making two separate extensions. Now, as far as the frame, we're going to have to remove, in order to make this wider and thicker battery fit, we remove this part of the frame that used to hold in the battery, and now it's just in the way. So we're going to have to cut that part out, and we're going to use a little piece of Velcro to wrap around the frame. There is a place that we can wrap it through here without interfering with anything to hold that battery in. So it looks like we can fit it in position the same place as the original battery. Once we get this loop cut out, then we just need something underneath it to keep it from slip sliding around. So what we need to do is deal with this piece of the structure that the original battery was. Oh look, a piece of rubber off an old hard drive enclosure. This might work. Battery fits the battery all right. It's a little thicker on one end than the other, and it looks like it's going to be a little bit. Oh look, here's another piece of two pieces. This will work a lot better. They're both the same thickness, and we'll just put one on each end of the battery, slap it right on in there, and of course this little nib comes off of there. Fits the battery just right. But yeah, we would just glue those on, and the thing we're going to need to do now is verify that this battery canopy fits on with the battery in place. So let's test that out, see how that works. Well, first thing to do, see, is this going to fit? And it does. But there's little pieces in here we need to be aware of, and not, because this is all real thin piece of plastic in there, and the control board is right underneath it, so you have to be real careful about the pressure that goes in here. So there we go, battery, canopy. Put the battery in there, dude. Put the battery in there. There you go. I know what it looks like. Put the battery in there. I want to see if the canopy fits. Put the wire out of the way. There you go. Put the canopy on there. No, it's a fail. It won't fit. It won't go down. We're going to have to make a modification. Ah, darn. So it didn't fit the first time. It's not going to fit now. Come on now. Let's just go. Modify. Cut. Break out the saw. We're going to have to cut that piece off right here. We're going to cut this piece off right here, and without messing these thin pieces up. And then we're going to have to cut notches into these battery, the rubber that holds the battery, so that they will sit down onto that little frame and allow the battery to drop down even further for the proper clearance that we're going to need. So we'll just cut notches in here to match this up here. So we go ahead and trim both of these pieces a thin notch right here on the rail that matches the rail, and that will set the battery the right height to match. This is a sample of the little rubber feet that I referred to before, but you can use use the sheet itself, not the feet, and use this a piece to use as for traction, where you take this piece and apply this right here rather than the two pieces I've used, and that will actually help hold the battery into place right there. Just gives it traction. This part of the clip is actually speeded up, but take your time and trim real slow, because this piece is actually where it's connected. These cross pieces are really thin and flexible, so you have to be really extra careful. You could probably snip it off and then come back with a knife and trim the bunch of pieces off, but it's not going to make that much difference. You still have to do the same slow trimmy thing that we're doing here. So it's just a matter of trim and trim a little more, and then trim a little more until it's off. Get it good and clean there. And then we'll go ahead and mount the two pieces of rubber that we've already made the notches in. We'll just glue them in place. Okay, so now I've already glued the two pieces of rubber in. While that dries, we'll work on the battery. And I've already trimmed off the one lead that we're not going to use, and I've actually put some of this Loctite plastic, it's actually liquid plastic, over that end. Here I'm going to go ahead and trim off the ends of a couple of pieces of wire, and I'm looking at what we have here is some shrink tube, and there are several things about soldering that we should cover. One is, normally you would cut the two pieces of wire in different places so that the joints aren't side by side. But this is so short that they're going to have to be side by side. So I'm slipping, wait a minute, I did slip. First I'm going to have to solder one, and basically what we're going to wind up doing, you have two leads and that hot. So cover one lead with a piece of shrink tube before you start soldering. And also put solder on the end of the wire first, and then on each piece, and then when you go to solder those together, they already have the solder in them, and it's a whole lot easier to get it to solder together. So what we have is a close-up now. Now where I've got also, once I've got it soldered, and then I started to solder the end on, then you put that piece of shrink wrap green there, put that back on the end to cover so that that piece of wire doesn't touch something and start sparking, shorting out. Just a precaution. So I've already put a piece of red shrink tube on the wire, and go ahead and solder that piece. Then I'll slide that up and shrink it, and then I'll go ahead and solder the other piece and shrink that. Okay, so now we're ready for, I've got the leads fed through, we're ready to do a fit test, and I got the battery strapped in, trimmed up the Velcro, and well, let's see if the canopy fits. Yeah, the lead's on. Though part of the problem was the leads, because of the shrink wrap, made it really hard to bend them. So what I did find, though, that right here the Velcro is actually pulling the frame up and bending the little support brackets. So we're going to deal with that by placing something underneath the battery right in this area in between where the Velcro obviously was pulling up that frame. You can see that where the rubber pieces are actually a little bit thick maybe. And I have this piece of styrofoam that's just the right height, so the thickness. So we'll put that in here. cut a piece that just fits under the battery and under the wide enough to cover the Velcro. Now double check. Yeah, that's packing styrofoam. It's fairly dense but soft. And here we have to mess with the cable, the wires again. They're stiff and they're really hard to get manipulated in where they're supposed to be. So, okay, put the Velcro on. Let's double check that. Now the Velcro is actually on there, holding the battery good and tight, and it's not bending the frame at all. So that fixed that part of the deal. And double check those wires are actually out far enough, because it has to turn around and plug back in right here instead of having a switch. I don't know why the manufacturer don't put a switch on there. So now we're going to check the canopy again. So let's see if it fits this time. There's a little problem somewhere. It's not holding up, and I think it may be there's a little, besides the wire sticking out against it, and maybe a little bit of extra Velcro there to trim off. So let's do that. So now double check move the wire and make sure that the wire is pulled out as far as we can get it to fit all the way around where it has to plug back in. Double check that canopy, make sure how much. No, it's still being held off a little bit right there. So I'm gonna guess it's this piece of Velcro, a little bit too much. So we can trim just a little bit of this Velcro off, and it'll still hold. We don't need that much in there. And now let's see what we got. That's about as little, and it's a tight fit. It is a tight fit. It's a very tight fit. Pushing up, it's actually pushing up a little bit. We're gonna have to force it down just a little bit. I'm thinking that the pieces of rubber that I use to support the battery are probably about a 32nd of an inch too thick. So with that in mind, let's see if it'll actually snap in place. And it seems to, he's studying on it. See just how, that's the snap in. Just how much is it pressing up? I can feel right here and right there on each side where the Velcro is. Now I don't know if using a thinner piece of Velcro or some other thinner wrap would help, but it is pressing just a tiny bit, and it does hold it up. There's a little bit of a crack that you can see on one side. You can see through it. Other than that, it looks like it's good to go. I mean, it's pretty much that's it. I mean, there's only one thing left to do. That's take it outside and test flight it, see what happens.
Smack at it. I feel better, even though QuickTime is not functional. It's so weird. Now it's not putting this screen capture. Right there. So, looking at it.
See if our modifications threw off the balance, or if there's added weight. So let's test it and find out. Okay, the joystick is back. Put that on. Plug in our new 6mm. Oh, yeah, that shrink wrap really stiffened up the wire there. Okay. It's left, it's forward. Alright, come on. There you go. See. See now, see, it's going to, it doesn't seem to be, it's on higher sensitivity. Let's see what happens now. It seems to fly the same. And I'm still having a problem doing the trim thing, because if I look down at my hands, then I lose sight of the chopper. And it wants to go. Whoopsie. Forward, backward. It's left, it's right. Ooh, I think I got it trimmed out. The breeze is carrying it, but I've got it to hover. Let's see if I can. It's left. It's forward. Got it to hover. I finally got it to hover. All right. So my modification, adding the larger battery, even though it's left. It's heavier, and the battery is actually lifted up that high. So the modifications. All right, now he's trying to get fancy. Yeah, he's just trying to be fancy. Yeah, he's just trying to be fancy. So we got it trimmed. That's good news. Now let's see. I want to land softly. Yeah, that's pretty good. All right, fly around and not have to chase it. This is awesome. Back, Easy down, easy down. Alright, that's awesome. To fly around and not have to chase it. Whoa. Hard landing. Let's see. The lights are still on. Alright, let's keep going then. See if we can keep it in this area right here. I messed up by dropping the throttle way too quickly, and it hits the ground. Left, forward. Also, as you hit the throttle, sometimes it bumps it to the battery's going down because it's wide open and there's not enough power to lift it off. So I'm guessing we're out of flight time, right? There it is. So there's your flight time.